Hello there, I'm George Jensen. I'm going to be the instructor for RHET 4190 Colloquium, which is our capstone course for the major. So it's a capstone in the sense that what we are hoping you're going to do is kind of pull together all of the material, or at least samples of the material that you've been working on throughout the program, pull those together in an e-portfolio and reflect on those. So, two purposes for the e-portfolio. The first one is that we will use this to assess the program and make improvements in the program. And we've made a number of improvements over the years. So you're helping us out in that sense. But this is also a portfolio that you should be thinking of as a tool in the job market. Even if you're not on the job market right now, you probably will be at some point in the coming years, and you're going to have material that you did in the course saved in a web-based format that you can then go into and buff up or update or make some changes to use that in the job market. If you go into a job application with a portfolio, you're way ahead of everybody else. So that's what we're going to try and do. Last semester I taught this online also, and that was the first time I taught it online. I'm making some modifications this time that I'm going to talk about right now. Last semester, I spent a lot of time working with the students at the beginning of the semester on how to prepare for a job search. So I was having them do things like buff up their resume or their CV. I was having them do a job letter and get feedback on that. I was having them kind of like write a narrative about everything that had happened to them in their career and their life that led them to the point they are now, which helps them to basically have material at hand to answer questions in a job interview. Not everybody was looking for a job. So here's what I'm going to do this semester. I'm going to flip things. Instead of starting off with a lot of job stuff, we're going to start off on the portfolio. Let's get the portfolio done about mid-semester. Once you have a good portfolio together, I'm not saying necessarily perfect, I'm not going to nitpick with it, but once you have a good solid portfolio together that you're proud of, submit it to me. I'll probably give you some feedback, and I can give you feedback at different intervals as we're moving along. But once we get that feedback and you've got a pretty solid portfolio, you're going to have an A in the course. So we're basically doing a mastery approach to this course. Once you've got a portfolio that's a good portfolio, you're done with the course. I'd like to try and finish that by about mid-semester. Then, if you need help in preparing for the job market, I will continue to work with you. But as much as possible, I'm going to try and kind of embed the things that I did earlier in the semester leading up to the portfolio into the portfolio itself. For example, one of the key components of the portfolio is a reflective piece that comes at the beginning. This is a letter where you are writing about your experiences in the program, what you learned in the program, how the program changed you, and how the program prepared you for a job, and so on. You should have a reflective piece at the beginning of each of the major sections. So when you look over the directions, which I've posted on the Blackboard site, in addition to the reflective piece, you need a section on content development, section on research, section on voice, section on effective copywriting, and a section on professional formatting. For each of those sections, I would have a separate page that's linked to your home page or your landing page. And when you go to that separate page, I think at the beginning, there should be at least a short reflective piece in a couple of paragraphs or so. And then you can have below that where you load up documents and you can access the actual documents. But in that short piece, reflective piece for the section, what I would be doing is pointing to certain kinds of documents that are in that part of the portfolio, and basically telling the reader, here's what I want you to notice as you're going through this piece, because this shows what I've learned, or this shows what my skills are. So, I mean, that's the basic way that I would set up the portfolio. As I mentioned in writing to you, there are three major kinds of platforms you can use. You can use Google Sites. That would be perfectly fine. It's very easy to use. It maybe has less, it's less robust than some of the other platforms you might use, but it's very easy to use. We use this in Comp 1 and Comp 2. Students, even at that level, who haven't had as much instruction in technology as you guys have, they can set up a site in 20 minutes. So this should be an easy way to set up the site. If you would rather, if you're have experience with WordPress or with Wix or some other platform, feel free to use that. The platform itself is not important, but you will need to share this with me and with Dr. Cox at some point. So that we can proceed with the assessment of the program. Okay, so one of the things I wanted to talk about briefly also is that there is a difference between paper portfolios and e-portfolios. Shortly after I came to UALR in 2004, I think it was about 2005, I was on a committee that was working on trying to develop Sakai, which was then an open source platform for doing things like e-portfolios and so on. And we were trying to figure out how to use Sakai to establish e-portfolios for assessment of programs and also for dossiers for faculty who were coming up for promotion and tenure. And so we had, for maybe 6 months or 8 months, something along those lines, we had regular meetings discussing this. What's happened in the field is that all of these platforms have emerged that are much easier to use than Sakai. So the Sakai part never really developed. But during the discussions, here's one of the things that I came to understand about the difference between an e-portfolio and a paper portfolio. Paper portfolio is going to be in a 3-ring binder, and so you've got really a very limited amount of space to deal with. With an e-portfolio, potentially you have an unlimited amount of space to present your case. And so to me, the key difference was what I would say describe with the single word, iteration. Now, iteration means instead of one document to show content development, maybe you want 3 or 4. I think that's fine. One is obviously the minimum. But if you want to do 3 or 4 or 5 or 6, that's fine. If in terms of content development, you want to do 4 drafts of a single essay and show how it developed and how you, with each draft, improved the essay, I think that's fine. But what I would do in the reflective piece to that section is give the reader the explanation of what he or she should look for in that section, because the reader's not going to be able to read closely all 3 or 4 documents. So set it up in the reflective piece, and then if you want to include more documents, you can include more documents. Now in a section like editing, maybe you want to include a copy of something you edited with the editorial marks on it, and maybe you want to include several stages of editing. I think that's fine. You've done that sort of thing in your editing classes. So if you want to think about that idea iteration, that's fine. So here's, I hope the video is going to give you a clearer idea of how we're going to go in the course. But I would also say, get on the discussion board, start posting your questions. If it makes sense for me to come in and make another video like this to have you see me explaining it as well as just responding to it on the discussion boards, I'm glad to do that. So let me know what your questions are and we'll start moving ahead. Let's try and get the portfolio done about mid-semester. I think that's a very reasonable deadline. And then you can let me know the ways that I can help you either with applications to grad school or with job applications in the job process. I'll be here to help you through that whole process. So let me know what you need. What I'm going to try and do is, if you let me know what you need, I'm going to try and meet your needs. Okay, so get on the discussion board. Let's start talking about things. Let me know what your questions are. Let me know what you need. I'll talk to you later.